everyone, and welcome to the third episode of For the Culture, the only podcast in the world, from my knowledge, dedicated to highlighting prominent Hindus in Western society and sharing their stories. Today, we're joined by Ragini Bhasin, a filmmaker. Ragini directs and creates episodes of the popular web series Jubilee, with over 6.6 million subscribers on YouTube. She's also the director of the film Gazal and the creator of Las Escadindas. Her films have been and are currently in Oscar and BAFTA qualifying film festivals, and she even won Best International Film at the South Dakota Film Festival. Ragini, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I know I gave a quick introduction, but is there anything I missed or something that you'd like to add on for the audience or?
No, that's about it. I was born and brought up in India, and I moved here for grad school to study in Chapman University. So yeah, I think I'm more so introduced to the Western part of the world in the last 5 years.
Oh, okay. So you only came here for 5 years ago, basically.
Yeah, for grad school.
Oh, nice. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I just I just want to first and foremost just get started with Jubilee. I'm a huge fan of Jubilee. A lot of my friends love Jubilee. Like, we watch all the episodes and stuff. So I just have to ask you, like, as a fresh out of grad school student, like, why, or maybe you were still in grad school, like, why did you decide to join Jubilee of all production companies or studios?
I think firstly, Jubilee, it's a media company that is turning into production company also, and I really liked their content. I was a huge fan of Middle Ground and Spectrum specifically because I liked how they would get characters who I wouldn't, or just people who I wouldn't really meet in my daily life, and hearing their stories firsthand, and seeing how intimate the characters can get with how much they share and how vulnerable they can get. I really liked that aspect of Jubilee and the kind of episodes that they touch upon. So I think that's what made me pretty interested in Jubilee. Also, it's not usually you need more work experience to join a production company. As a directors are mostly freelancers, so it just worked out pretty well.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. And for any audience member, or to all the uncles and aunties who are watching that don't really know what Jubilee is, you can find it on YouTube. Basically, it's a web series. I think that's an apt way to describe it. I'm not sure, but
it's a YouTube channel. Yeah.
Okay, so it's just a YouTube channel, and it promotes empathy and conversation from people of all sorts of viewpoints and backgrounds. So I definitely recommend you check it out. And that's honestly like one of the reasons I'm a huge fan of Jubilee, because of the values that they promote, that being conversation. And I feel that they're probably one of the few unbiased outlets that promote conversation that I can think of. So that's super cool. And yeah, kind of going off what you were saying about meeting people you wouldn't really meet in your your daily life. How I came to like know about you was because I saw the video where it was the people from major religions talking with Satanists.
Mm-hmm.
And how was that experience like?
It was really good, actually. I feel so bad for the Satanists because they were a target of a lot of negative comments. But to be honest, I think a lot of my values aligned with them also, because they were a lot about freedom and freedom of choice. And it's not that they worship the devil or anything like that. I think Satanism has a bad reputation because people don't know about it. But it was a pretty interesting experience. And plus, I don't think Hinduism really goes against Satanism. It's more the Abrahamic religions where there is conflict. So I just felt more like I felt like I am on the major religion side, but I can relate to both.
Yeah, no, that's one thing I noticed. Like, when the other two religions were going up, like, you tended to stay back or like go forward with the Satanists a decent amount of the time, just because Hinduism is more of a freelance kind of way of life, I guess.
Yeah, it's very philosophical. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like what do you, so what exactly like do you do for Jubilee, and how is that process like?
So I direct series for them. For example, right now I'm working on Middle Ground, so I'm working with the casting department to cast the series. Then I work with the production department to make sure that the production happens, and then work with the post-production department when the edits happen. So the process is that we'd first greenlight some episodes. for a certain batch, and usually we shoot like 6 episodes in one batch. Then we go about casting. We reach out to people. We send casting emails to people, and once they sign up, we interview them and try to find the best fit for the specific episodes. Then we shoot usually into over 2 days, and then we go into post production where we try to find the best bites and try to represent the people in the best way possible. Um, and then we release the episode.
That's super interesting. So is working at basically a YouTube channel, is that very similar to the stuff that you learned in undergrad or grad school, or?
Not really, because I learned narrative content, how to make short films, which can translate into how to make features, because it's still narrative. Of course, short films and feature films are very different, but YouTube content is very different from narrative. And actually, that's what we always discuss, that everybody Jubilee is still trying to figure out what the audience wants. And we somehow sometimes do know what videos will do well, but sometimes, at least where I'm concerned, sometimes I make a video where I think will not do well and it ends up doing really well. And a video that I think will break all boundaries, it doesn't end up getting the viewership that I expected. So it's pretty unpredictable. And I think the YouTube audience keeps changing, and it's very important to evolve with what they want. But at the same time, I personally feel like we should make our content, and if it's not the same audience that's attracted to it, a new audience will be attracted, so that we're putting out something that's fresh, which is always something that's Jubilee's motto, to have empathy savvy content.
Right. And have there ever been videos that you were afraid would be thought of as controversial just because of the groups of people that you interview? Not all of them are the types of people you'd see like in everyday life. Like, have you ever been afraid to kind of direct or like produce a video, or not really?
Not yet. I think there's one video that I'll be working on now, which I'm a bit afraid for. I'm just afraid that the audience will not understand why we're representing that side. But I think the purpose of Jubilee is to try to understand where everybody comes from, because even if there's somebody whose opinions you don't agree with, they still have those opinions. And I think it's important to understand why they feel the way they feel. And that's very important for us to have unbiased conversations, which are at the same time personal. But yes, there have been a couple of times where I felt protective about a cast member, and we try to, even when we edit, we try to show them in the best light possible. But at the same time, we try to make them look like they're true to who they are. But sometimes the YouTube audience doesn't like a specific person, so they really go after them and bully them in the comments, which is completely unfair. It's the opposite of what we want.
Exactly.
So that's actually happened once. There was a video that released, and I was very protective about one of the cast members. I thought he's going to receive a lot of flack and people are going to really go in the comments after him. But he was actually appreciated. And there was another woman who was targeted a lot, and that felt really bad. Plus, usually I've noticed that women are targeted more in comments than men, which is also very unfair. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No.
That just shows the intrinsic misogyny that a lot of people, and especially I assume most of the people who comment or watch the videos they belong to Gen Z generation, like they're Generation Z. So it's really sad when they bully people so much in the comments.
No, I feel like when people get on the internet or on social media or whatever, like you just have the potential to be mean without any repercussions.
Yeah, because you're just hiding behind a profile, and even that's not your name, so it's. But of course, the people who are in the videos, they read all the comments, and so many of them are so hurtful.
Yeah.
And that's, so I just wish that people were more responsible when they were leaving comments.
Right. No, that's definitely something important to talk about, I guess. Just, the toxicity of YouTube audience in general.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure while the Jubilee audience is, almost all the time, like fantastic. Like I do understand what you're saying, because I look through the comments and I see like a few not so kind ones.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's good that you like touched on that.
Mm-hmm.
So having interacted with all kinds of people from all different perspectives and backgrounds, do you have any like what's the most interesting story that you have, if you have one, about, a Jubilee, like behind the scenes or like a conversation that you had with somebody?
Wow, there's so many. I'm just gonna refer to maybe the last episode, last series that I shot, which was a batch of Middle Ground.
Mhm.
I don't remember what specific episode was, but somebody was just to confirm, is it, are you talking about something that touched me personally and like sort of changed the way I look at things, or was it something that is um that
Like,
was just very surprising to learn?
we both,
Okay.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember this previous batch of Middle Ground. There was an episode where it was with teens, and there was one teenager who revealed a lot about their personal story, like of coming out and belonging to a specific part of the US and their relation with their friends and how they were not accepted, stuff like that. And I I remember while shooting it, I felt I was grateful that they were sharing all this, but I also felt like, oh, I just hope that they feel comfortable sharing this. And later on, I hope they don't regret it, because sometimes you say things, you're just in the flow of a conversation, you say things and later you regret. So I felt a little bit dicey about that situation. But later on, they came to me and they said that they felt very happy that they shared all that, and it was very cathartic for them. And this whole experience was sort of life changing. And of course, life changing is a pretty significant word to use. And even if it was not life changing, but it really made their day and made them feel more relieved, I think that was very heartwarming to see how um, how like, yeah, cathartic it can be to share your personal stories with a group of strangers. So
Mhm.
that was very enlightening. And I remember this is something that I liked about I liked what a specific cast member shared with me, but I also remember there was another episode where somebody was a therapist, and they mentioned about what therapy means to them and how it has helped them during dire times. And I have always been of the belief that, okay, maybe I will take therapy when I go through a bad situation. But I just think hearing that conversation changed my mind. And I was like, okay, no, maybe I should take therapy just so that I can prepare myself when a bad situation comes up. And therapy is just like a mental health checkup. It's just not that, okay, there's a problem and that needs to be fixed. So this really changed my mind about how I view therapy. And it's not, I always think it's very important and people should take it. But I used to tell myself that I would take it only if I'm going through a difficult time. But I just feel now I would like to just go to a therapist and consult a therapist to make sure that I am doing okay, like a normal health checkup. So I think that was very enlightening for me, just hearing them talk about that.
Right. No, for sure. So that's super cool. So your perspective on things like change as well, I'm sure.
Yes, they changed quite a bit. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must be
Which is
so.
which is which is yeah, something that I really like about the job, and especially the kind of people that we try to work with in
Mhm.
Jubilee. I really appreciate that about my job.
Right. That's super cool.
Mhm.
Do you have like a favorite episode or a least favorite episode you'd that you can think of off the top of your head, or like,
Yeah, one of my favorite episodes would be the middle ground pro versus anti-social media teams. I really like that because I just see the pros and cons of both, and I just loved all the cast members. I usually like all my cast members, but that specific one I related to both sides a lot, so I really like that. So I would say that's one of my favorites. And another one was Odd One Out, middle schoolers versus one secret fifth grader.
hmm
I enjoyed that one a lot because of all the kids, and they were so adorable. So yeah,
right.
I think these two would be on my top.
Okay. I haven't watched either of those actually, so I should definitely go check it out after we're
Okay.
done with the interview.
Okay,
But
great. Let me know if you like them or what you think.
oh no, I'll definitely let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, so oh, speaking of odd one out, so yesterday on my Instagram story, I'm pulling it up right now, but I said, like I'm doing this interview tomorrow. If you have any questions or uh anything you want me to ask Ragini, like just let me know. And someone asked if you could direct an odd man out episode who's not a Hindu. I don't know, like that's just what someone asked me to
Okay.
ask you. What's your thought
All
on that?
right. All right. Now, the more recent batches are being directed by another director who's, yeah, so I can always send him the suggestion. And it could be pretty interesting to see
Okay.
who's not a Hindu. Yeah, I will definitely send that as a suggestion. And yeah, I think Let's see. I could see that being pretty fun and difficult to figure out
Right.
who the mole is. We just have to be pretty wary of how we cast the mole.
Right.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah, yeah.
And then someone else, submitted a question. What has your career trajectory been like to lead you to now working with Jubilee? And I know that your career is just getting started due to, grad school and all that, but can you just describe your steps so far that has led you to where you are now for any aspiring filmmakers or any aspiring YouTubers?
Sure. So I studied my undergrad in English literature from Hindu College in Delhi University. And then I got admission in Chapman University to study my MFA in film directing. Somehow my undergrad and graduation was not that related. Um, but of course, studying English literature helped in some way or the other because you learn a lot about narrative stories in general. Then after graduating, in those 3 years in Chapman University, I made a few short films. My thesis film, thankfully, did well in festivals, and that is, I would say, the closest product, like the closest content that I've made. It means a lot to me. And based on that, so that was my thesis film. And then I did a lot of freelance gigs as a script supervisor, production assistant, first assistant director, editor. And then I applied for the job at Jubilee because I really liked the ethos of the company. And I submitted my short film and a self-introductory video essay where I talked about being a being a brown female director. And I'd seen Jubilee's uh, like the roster, like the people who work there, and I was like, oh, there's an Indian missing. So, and Jubilee's a lot about diversity, and they try to get people
Right.
from all walks of life and all ethnicities and different backgrounds, so that we can have a very diverse group. So I think so. I try to play that also, and I got lucky, and I think it was because of my thesis film and self-introductory video essay, and I shared what I could bring in for the company, because of which I got hired. And currently I'm working with them. But I also try to work on my personal projects, which have taken a backseat right now. But I would pretty soon start working on them as well, on my feature film that I want to shoot in India and some other short films that I want to make here in the US.
Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing that. So now I kind of want to touch on your short films. So can you tell us a little bit about Gazal and like what that means to you?
Sure. It's actually Gazal.
Gazal, okay.
Gazal, yes. And Gazal is this film about a 13-year-old Afghan refugee who experiences her period in a refugee camp. And it was a story that I wanted to tell because I surely wanted to make films about girls experiencing their periods and talking about that. And it's something we shot it in India. My parents were super supportive and were very helpful, both my mom and my dad. They helped me they helped me find the location, they helped with props, and it was just a huge set because we were building a refugee camp from scratch. um, but anyway, the film means a lot to me because I just think periods are considered taboo in every part of the world, which is also a product of just misogyny. Like, women's health is just not talked about, and it's something that every biological woman goes through. So I find it pretty absurd that it's something that's still considered a taboo in different parts of the world, even in Western society. So I think making a film like that was pretty important for me. And when I made that film, I think it's even more timely now because of what's happening in Afghanistan. And I think the refugee crisis is something that's always been very disturbing to me. And I just wanted to combine those two themes and those two settings because I really wanted to tell that story. And sometimes I wonder if I'm the right person to tell the story because I don't belong to that background, or I've not lived that life, and I've been very privileged in just how I've been brought up and where I've stayed and where I've lived. But at the same time, I just thought that it's an important story to tell, and um, I just felt very passionate about it. So
Right.
that was the reason why I made a film like that.
Right. No, and you're right about, menstruation being a taboo subject, and unfortunately so. Um, I think it's, because I remember when Akshay Kumar's Padman came out, like my mom was, really happy that someone was talking about it, and we even watched the movie together. So where can someone watch your short films? Are those available to the public, or how do we go about viewing your work?
Yeah, I think Gazal will be available pretty soon. On a few on it's right now because it's still playing festivals, but I found distribution with Shots TV, so it'll be available then. And another film, Las Escondidas, that's still playing festivals, so it's not available online.
Okay.
Probably in a year, both of the films will be available for free.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So I'll definitely check it out. To anyone watching, definitely check it out. When they are available. Can you tell us a little bit about Las Escondidas?
Sure. It's a film about an 8-year-old girl who feels very insecure um, when her father asks her to take care of a little boy because she's very possessive about her father, and she just wants to decipher the relationship between her father and the little boy. So
Mhm.
I think it stems from um, I just love telling stories of kids, and I just think sometimes we expect kids to have an emotional capacity like an adult, which is completely unfair. So that's the reason behind me making a film like that, which shows this girl who does something that's wrong, but still at the end of the day she's a little kid.
Right.
So us expecting a more mature emotional capacity from kids feels unfair, and not talking to them about their issues or how they feel is also um, not correct. So that's what the I mean that's the thesis behind the film. I just hope it's reflected in the way I've made it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Um, Now when I you know told my friends or my Instagram following that I'd be interviewing a filmmaker for this podcast, a few people got really excited because they like Jubilee. A few friends of mine got super excited because they're aspiring filmmakers as well.
Mm.
And like even right now, I'm working on a team to create a documentary about the significance of rivers in Hindu culture and kind of
Wow.
telling that from a Hindu American perspective. But everyone here is, a starting filmmaker. I'm on the marketing team. I'm not even behind the camera or anything. But just, if you could describe the process of, from the time you get the idea to the time you like wrap up like filming, how does that work? Like how do you cast people or like find the right people to cast, and how do you decide the location and all that stuff?
Are you talking about narrative documentaries or unscripted?
uh do you work with narrative documentaries primarily?
So I try to make narrative myself, but for Jubilee I work in unscripted.
Oh, okay, then yeah, for narrative, for things that end up in like festivals and such.
Okay, for narrative, which is like a fictional piece, I think I first try to figure out what's the story that I would like to tell, or what's something that attracts me. It could be a specific theme, could be a character, could be a location, just could be a feeling, could be just a visual, just a photo, and I want to tell a story related to this photo. So it can be whatever, it can be anything that grabs your attention. And then trying to tell a story that feels honest to the intention behind you telling the story. I think that's important. And then once I have a rough idea of what I want to tell or how I want it to feel, I'd do some more research, try to find reference films or reference pictures, videos, even people who can help me relate to the specific story I want to tell. Or I see that people who could be a good fit, or movies that I think I would want the film to be like.
Mhm.
So I think there's a lot of research that goes behind it. And then comes trying to figure out the plot. At least this is what my process is. And I think plot is very replaceable. It's not that the plot has to be, I think it's easy to change some plot points as long as the story is what you want to tell. And once I'm done with that, then I try to find, again, I watch some other short films, which I think could have specific characters that I'm looking to cast in my film. And then I go about putting a casting notice on specific websites like Backstage or LA Casting, etc., where I can find cast members, and then I cast people. For me specifically, how I work is that I usually find somebody whose story I would want to tell and try to work with them to fictionalize their story and tell and make a film on that. That's something that I like.
Right.
So, for example, there are two short films that I would like to work on. I don't know which one will come first, but there is a 10-year-old boxer who's trained by her father, and she's already playing like at a high level. She's playing high level tournaments. So I'm just intrigued to know why she wanted to be a boxer, or what makes her want to be a boxer, or if she even is sure that she wants to be a boxer because she's just 10. So I'm trying to workshop and just know more about her story, and try to fictionalize a story behind her life, or just a moment in her life. But anyway, so that's how I work. But otherwise, if you put out the casting mail, then you start casting people, trying to find the best fit, try to find the location also by going by just searching online and or going to the locations and trying to get permit and all that stuff. That's very producer oriented, trying to find permit and trying to figure out what time you can shoot and if you can shoot there and how many people you need for the shoot, etc.
Right.
And vis-a-vis, like during this time, I also try to find my crew, like the cinematographer I would want to work with, the editor, the sound person, producer, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And then once things are getting locked at the same time, it's a lot of things that happen together, but I also work with my cinematographer trying to figure out the best shots needed to tell the story in the most honest way and how do we visually convey the feeling or the emotion that we want to tell. And then you're working with the production design department, the cinematography department, with the producer, and even with the sound department, actually, if you want to incorporate sound even before shooting, like, and where you would like to incorporate sound. And then we go into production, which is usually the shortest because it's like a few days. It could be from 2 days to like a week. And after production, we go into post-production where we start editing. And after editing, it goes to the sound designer and the colorist, and then the film is finally made. And that's what they say. After a film is made, that's also 50% of the job done, because now you have to figure out what's the best way for it to get visibility. It could be festivals, it could be online platforms, it could be tie up with some nonprofits, and you just play it there. So there are different ways to go about that.
Okay, got you. Yeah, no, I think anyone who wants to be, a filmmaker or, wants to go to film school would have greatly benefited from what you just said.
Mhm.
So I I remember how you were saying that when you were trying to film Ghazal in India, uh, you said your parents were extremely supportive of you, helping with the props and all that. Uh, One person actually, submitted a question saying, how did your parents slash relatives react when you told them you wanted to pursue the arts and, film in particular? Like, how was that like?
Yeah, my parents always thought that I would do something in finance or something like more of a more in the corporate world, but that was just something that was not of my interest. Um, and it's even less of my interest now than it was back then. So my interest in just anything else has been dipping. I wouldn't mind doing something like working as a child psychologist, something that's in that area, but I knew I don't want to pursue that. And I was always into films. So it took me a while to convince my parents, and they were like, okay, why don't you do an MBA and then do film so that you have a backup? And I was like, I don't need a backup. But I remember having this conversation with them for like 2 hours one night, and we reached no conclusion. And somehow the next day, I remember my mom was dropping me to the metro station, and she was driving me, and she said, okay, if you want to pursue film, you should apply to a grad school first. And I was like, wow, she just changed like within 12 hours. And and then I applied to grad school. And when I came here, they saw how happy I am and how much I love it. And they're also like movie buffs. So I always send them my films for feedback or for any critique. And both my parents give really good feedback as an audience. And actually, my mom has now started giving feedback as a filmmaker also, because she's helped me produce. She'd helped a lot with the production of Gazal. So did my dad, both of them. And yeah, so since then they've been on board. I think both my parents are my biggest cheerleaders, and they are extremely supportive. I think sometimes my dad gets more excited about my projects than even I do.
Right.
So it's great.
That's awesome to hear. So
Mhm.
your journey as a filmmaker started at grad school. So like, was your undergrad related to filming at all, or?
It was English literature, so it was not
Oh
related
wow.
to filming at all. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's super interesting because from from my perspective, I just started my undergrad. So my perspective is like, okay, like this is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. But I guess, in
Yeah.
your case,
Plus, I think as filmmakers, we're lucky. Like we're not I think there's more pressure like on athletes and musicians also, or some other professions, where the earlier you start, the better. But with filmmaking, sometimes the later and more life experience you have, the better it is, because you just know yourself more to tell the stories you want to tell. And you're a bit more sure of yourself, or you're just more open also to
Mhm.
unlearn things and then relearn them. So I think with filmmaking, it's great that you can even start off late, even in your 30s, and it's not late.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Mhm.
Um, what are your favorite movies? You know, as a filmmaker, since you like, you know, you're not only viewing this as an audience, but as someone who knows what goes on behind the
Mhm.
camera. What what are your favorite movies like? I'm curious to know.
I think one of my favorite films is A Separation by Asghar Farhadi. He's an Iranian filmmaker, and his films are they're like social thrillers that I really enjoy. Another favorite film, which is I think a lot of people's favorite film, is Parasite. No matter how many times I watch it, I just notice so many new elements, and I'm like, how did Bong Joon Ho even think of this? It's just every moment is so well thought of, and it just feels perfect. Another favorite film would be Capernaum, which is by Lebanese filmmaker Nadine Lebaki, and it follows the journey of a young boy. I think he's around 10, who sues his parents for giving birth to him, and it's a very very heartfelt and very emotional film. Um, so yeah, I think I love those films that are rooted a lot in. I think Parasite is not that, but mostly I like films that are rooted in a lot of real life stories and dramas or thrillers or even comedy films that don't seem like that on the surface, but they dig much deeper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like everyone has heard of Parasite, but I haven't heard of the other two, so I should definitely check them out. Are they on
Okay.
Netflix?
Sometimes I don't think they're on Netflix anymore. I think one is on Hulu and the other's on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime. Okay. I
Yeah.
have that, so I'll definitely watch that
Okay.
probably this weekend.
Okay,
Um,
perfect.
so I just have like one or two more questions, you know, regarding Hinduism and your take on it. So,
Mhm.
uh, you know, I guess, you know, choosing to be a Hindu is a decision one makes on a daily basis, right? You know, waking up and deciding to practice whatever values um, that, you know, you gleaned from Hinduism. So, uh, what aspects of Hinduism really appeal to you, and why do you make the conscious decision to, you know, stay a Hindu every day?
I think what I really like about Hinduism, and that is something that I've learned more over the years, is the freedom of being who you are. I think Hinduism doesn't tell you what to do or how to do it. It's more about, it's very spiritual practice. And it's something that has always aligned with my values and who I am as a person. Um, I don't think there are any strict rules with Hinduism that this is wrong, this is right. Even though I know some people, when they interpret Hinduism more so in the recent years, it's not, it does not align with how I interpret it. But that is also a part of Hinduism, to let people do what they want, you know, as long as it's morally correct. And of course, morality can also be ambiguous. Um, but I also like the concept of karma. Um, that doesn't resonate with me completely, because I always question, like, what about the people who don't do anything bad, but yet bad things keep happening, and other stuff like that. But just the sense of karma, that the more good you do, the more spiritually aligned you are with your values. I just like just a general philosophy of that.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I think I find Hinduism a philosophical practice and a very spiritual practice more than a religion, um, that is open to interpretation, and I feel it changes with time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of our scriptures are like a breathing document, I guess you could say, right? One that,
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
what impact has, you know, Hinduism or being a Hindu, what impact has it had on your life or even your career, if any?
I think more than Hinduism, it's my family and my upbringing that has made an impact. And I know a lot of their values are rooted in Hinduism, and I think more so mine are. I I just wouldn't say it's because I'm a Hindu, but more so because of my family, like my parents, my upbringing, that has shaped me as a person. Um, but I think each time that I feel a little lost, or I'm not sure about a certain action of mine, I do, like, I myself have this little book where I've written like my values, and a lot of them are rooted in Hinduism and what Hinduism has taught me. But that specific book that I've written is just, it's like for myself, with what I feel is aligns with my spiritual being. Yeah.
Right. Definitely. And just to kind of like wrap things up here, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've definitely noticed it that a lot of people who are born to, Hindu parents, tend to kind of, step away from Hinduism, not because they disagree with any practices or anything, but just because it's not seen as cool to be a Hindu, right? It kind of seems like you're some over religious pagan, like devil worshiper, whatever the perception is. And it's just kind of sad to see, people, shun away a pretty, wise way of life without, doing any research into it and just, trying to, conform to, whatever the majority group believes in just for social acceptance.
Hmm.
So why do you think it's important to stick up for, your faith or, like regardless if you're a Hindu or not, like why do you think it's important to stick up for who you are as a person or like what you believe in?
I totally get your point that a lot of younger generation, and yeah, they don't want to conform to the standards of Hinduism, or just I agree with your point that a lot of younger generation does not want to identify as Hindu, and I just think whatever your religion is for anyone, I think that should always come in later. I
Right.
see myself as a human first, as a person, um, as a woman, and then I see myself as a Hindu. I think it's a part of me, but I strongly believe that religion shouldn't overtake you, shouldn't be all of that you are. That I'm a Hindu first, and then I'm a human. And I think that could be the reason why some people shun away from that. And I sort of do understand
Mhm.
why that happens. But I agree with you also that Hinduism is also not about that. I think one of Hinduism's preachings is that you're not your religion. A religion is a part of you, and you have the freedom to accept it when you want and leave it if you feel it doesn't resonate with you.
Right.
So that is something that I find very beautiful, and I personally I feel that is the case with a lot of religions, but the way they have been rewritten, the scriptures have been rewritten and interpreted, um, is has overtaken just the essence of religion, which I feel religion was there for the good of humankind, but I think now making religion your end all be all and your identity rooted in your religion can be harmful, um, because then you don't want to accept somebody who has a different belief. So
Right. No.
yeah, I just think it's important to see yourself as a human being first, and more than anything, more than before anything else. And I think that should be way, way more important than anything that is subject that comes in your identity.
Right. No,
Yeah.
and I completely agree with that, right? It's always good to have that recognition that you are your own soul before conforming to any kind of group or set box that, someone's trying to place you in.
Yeah.
Um, you know, concluding on those wise words, Ragini, thank you so much, for joining me and for, having this conversation with me. I had a great time. I learned a lot too. And for anyone watching, I hope you guys learned a lot.
Oh,
Um,
that's so sweet. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And I'll have a link to the Jubilee channel in the description. So if by chance someone hasn't heard of Jubilee, they can, check out your stuff in the description. But yeah, once again, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.